right, we'll get together in about 2 minutes.
I'm waiting for my presentation to show up. How you doing, man?
I'm good, man.
Chuck White.
Oh yeah. You can't rob a bank in front of me. I'll tell them that was Chuck. But no, okay. You want me to wait a little longer until she gets in?
Just so she shows up with she got a jump drive.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. You good? All right, if we could gather together. Good afternoon and welcome to our Guilford County Delegation Legislative Agenda Day. I am Amos Quick, Chair of the Guilford County Delegation to the North Carolina General Assembly, and in a minute I will introduce you to the other members of the General Assembly who represent you and our county in Raleigh. The purpose of our gathering today is to dialogue on the ways that we can work together to improve the outcomes for Guilford County and for the city of Greensboro and the state of North Carolina. By working together, we can continue to raise the profile and business climate of our city and county. We can continue to positively impact the living and working conditions for the residents of our city and county, and together we can chart a bright future. We will begin our time together today by hearing the items on your legislative agenda that you have deemed important for us to hear today. After you have made your presentation, delegation members may have questions. In order that we may proceed through this process in the most orderly fashion, the delegation has elected to save our questions until the end of the city's presentation. We have agreed to a 1-hour time limit for this meeting, so we ask that as you present, please be mindful to leave time for questions at the end. I also want to thank all of the staff members who have worked hard behind the scenes to make this day happen. On the legislative side, Jasmine and Justin and Zuri who have left, and all of our legislative assistants who have helped us on the legislative end. And for the county, great, tremendous kudos to Robin Keller, who has been here with us all day and who has just been outstanding to reserve this space and to make sure our day has gone smoothly today. With that, let me introduce the Guilford County delegation, and then, Mayor, I'll turn it over to you for your introductions. Senator Gladys Robinson is the vice chair of the Guilford delegation. Senator Michael Garrett is also here with us, and we are blessed. He's the immediate past chair of our delegation, and we thank him for his work. Senator Tracy Clark represents North Carolina House District 57. Senator Allen, sorry, Allen, I didn't mean to demote you. How about that? Representative Alan Branson represents District 59 in the North Carolina House. Representative John Bluss is here, and he'll be back in the room in a moment. He represents District 62, and Representative Pricey Harrison is here, and she represents District number 61. With that, Mayor, good to see you, and we'll turn it over to you. Always good to see you.
Good to see you too. Good afternoon. It is our pleasure to be here. I just want to say thank you for being able to adjust your schedule earlier today. We appreciate your flexibility. I have my fellow council members here with me. Tammy Thurm, District 5, Sharon Hightower, District 1, Hugh Holston at large. Am I missing somebody? Jamila at large. Hugh at large, Nancy Hoffman, District 4, Goldie Wells, District 2, Mary Kay Abuzawader at large. We are pleased to be here with you today. We value our relationship with our delegation. We've always had a great relationship. We appreciate the phone calls that go both ways. When you have a question, you're always quick to ask us. If something shows up on legislation somewhere that you're not quite so sure whether we know about it or we'd support it, we appreciate how quickly you call us to get our input. Thank you. Please keep doing that, and we'll try to do the same. We know how quickly things move up in Raleigh, that there's not a whole lot of time to catch your breath and to really look at what's popping up. So we do appreciate how closely you work with all of that. And so I just want to say thank you. I'm going to turn it over to Chuck. And I do know that some of you have a hard stop at 4, so we'll try to be mindful of that.
News to me, but that's fine. I'm Chuck Watts. I'm the city attorney in Greensboro, and I've sort of taken this role on to present our legislative agenda and try to manage lobbying. But I do it with the assistance of my entire staff and also the managers team, and everybody. It's definitely a team sport. So we go with good, thanks. Okay. So the mayor just already stole my thunder on this one. You guys know everybody. These are actually the items from our last year's legislative agenda, and the matters that you see that are sort of stricken through are the ones that actually passed last year. So that's good news in a way. The others are the matters that we kind of had on our legislative agenda that the council continues to support. And we'd be happy to talk about those in detail. But generally speaking, in addition there too, we have two sort of policy proposals. One is that we want to support the statewide downtown organization in its effort to have the contiguity requirement for expansion of a downtown bid relaxed. HB 451 does that, and it just would allow a downtown bid organization to grow without running into sort of stumbling blocks just because of the location of particular properties. They would only join if voluntary. So the second thing is the concern that I'm sure you've heard from many municipalities regarding the downzoning provision that was included in the omnibus bill that was really about the disaster recovery, but included this language. I see a lot of nods, so I think the legislators are well aware of it. The next thing we want to talk about briefly is the League of Municipalities agenda as it relates to matters that the city would support. These are typically matters that relate more to a statewide perspective, but obviously would support the city of Greensboro in a lot of ways. And I will send you all a copy of this with a cover sheet that kind of summarizes it for you, and we will highlight the ones of these that may have some impact. That's helpful. Our housing team also looked at the recommendations from the Greensboro Chamber of Commerce, and council was supportive of these ideas as well. Obviously, housing is a real challenge for the state generally and all the cities. The note down at the bottom is a specific suggestion that we'd like to be considered, and you may be aware that cities are not allowed to support market rate housing. However, they can support projects that have at least 20% of the units to be occupied by folks who fit into the 60% AMI or less. It's our experience in dealing with that kind of a project that that 20% at 60% kind of kills most projects. If that was relaxed to allow 20% to be at 80% AMI, which is what most people think of as workforce housing, we think it would allow us to make a bigger difference. And given the housing challenge that all the cities face, that's one specific sort of suggestion that we have. After that, we have a series of matters that need money. And we have been made aware that, you guys have challenges on a financing side. A lot of the money is going to the West where there's disaster recovery. We're aware of that, but we want you to be aware of our needs as well. The Real-Time Intelligence Center is something that we're developing here in Greensboro, and we think it's impactful. But all of these have significant impacts. The license plate readers, you'll see a separate proposal from our Coliseum crowd, and they will have details around what's needed at the Coliseum. The challenges facing these emerging contaminants that are coming up and how that impacts both drinking water and wastewater, and how it impacts our streams and all of that. It's really a much broader problem than just in Greensboro. We have festivals that need support. We're looking forward to the FIFA, which will be broader than just Greensboro, but will have impact here in Greensboro. We meant to strike out H. I'm sorry. We will get that one removed. It's a real problem, and we're trying to figure out how to deal with it, but the solution is not close enough to us to really recommend that one. We do have fire stations that need support, and the PFAS and so forth. Foam is another issue that we address. Permanent supporting housing matching funds would be great, and we have this Nussbaum Center, the Steel House Project, which is an amazing project that also needs additional funding. Our Water Services Department developed this slide, and it's presented a number of challenges we have dealing with the needs to develop our water services system. These are large dollar amounts, and obviously they are impactful. That's an enterprise fund activity, and it has some money, but the challenges still exist. I think the chamber also is very supportive of us pushing towards more of a regional model, and many of the changes that we're talking about also support that regional model, dealing with trying to help the region that's described there in the graphic. Did I miss one? Yes. Did you want to talk about this one, Chris? I'm sorry.
Just in general, real quickly, what we're seeking is support for emergency service, which obviously helps our region. You may know that recently we have begun to extend water and sewer services into areas that are outside of our boundary in an effort to support our region. This also gives us the ability to make sure that our water quality is as we would want it to be for all of our end users. I'm sorry. Do I need to use the microphone?
Okay, so in case you didn't catch that, let me start over. We are seeking support for the continuing of expansion of water and sewer service for our region. Greensboro has expanded beyond our boundaries and continues to seek ways to support our growing economy regionally. As part of that, we have an aged infrastructure that needs additional investment, and the emerging contaminants continue to be a concern for our water treatment systems. With that being said, we continue to look for ways to make that investment as a city. You may recall our investment along 421 corridor, and certainly appreciate the return on that investment from Toyota. But in general, we continue to look at those opportunities and hope to seek some additional investment, as this is a growing concern for our region, not just Greensboro.
And this is more on the water services piece, but I think that covers it. This is just illustrating the projects that were described in the line items. Obviously, we have transportation needs as well. Our Gate City Boulevard is something that we've been working at, and this is also supported by our Chamber of Commerce's agenda as well. Is the chief here? Do you want to deal with this one? This is more police. Okay. That's the real-time intelligence center discussion. And here's the fire piece.
So thank you for the opportunity to be here today, first off. I think last year you heard me talk about this same project. So currently we still have that 1,000 acres at the airport we're wanting to see developed. I think that's going to happen. I think we're going to land some partners out there soon. And the city has put forth some funding towards that. We have just invested at Pleasant Ridge and Coode Road. We've bought 3 lots there, a little over 4 acres. So we're poised for a fire station in that area. And we certainly want that fire station there to respond to that 1,000 acres. It would be first due to Boom, Marshall, Aerospace. As you may know, the airport maintains crash fire rescue. That's all they do. City of Greensboro provides protection to all the buildings. All the medical calls we respond to. So the importance of having something on that side of the airport certainly growing as we start to develop that shovel-ready land that's there. Can you go one more, sir? Mm-hmm. So a little bit on the emerging chemicals and how it's affecting the fire service. I think you've all heard of that. I ask 2 things. Continue the support for the collaboratory at UNC. They are doing some fantastic work for the fire service, studying the health effects. They are actually inventorying all the firefighting foam across the state of North Carolina. We want to continue to support that. We want to continue the support for NC State doing the research on our turnout gear. Our turnout gear is full of PFAS. We know it's hurting us. We have not found a suitable replacement yet, but I do think NC State, they are the tip of the spear. So when we talk about firefighting foam, it's good that we've inventoried it, but at some point we need a buyback program. These volunteer departments are going to crush them, but it's going to crush us. With the largest tank farm east of the Mississippi, we have one of the largest storage of foam anywhere on the East Coast for our tank farm, and upwards of $500,000 worth of foam, maybe a little more, that we need to turn in and replace it once we have a viable option for PFAS free. That's all I have.
Just so you, if some of you have not seen our real-time intelligence center, I know our council members have had an opportunity to go on a tour. If you would like a tour, I'll get with Chief Thompson, have that set up for you. But it really has given us an opportunity to revolutionize our ability to monitor not only alarms or systems that people may have, but it also has given us an opportunity for our folks to be able to monitor calls. As you can see, of course, with the rising cost of different things, some of these have impact, our direct budget here. So we're looking at the Fuchsia system, which there have been several different change of hands with some of the companies. But this really would allow our officers on the street to have information, again, as it says, real time. The license plate readers have been very beneficial in some areas, and we've had a number of different situations where they've allowed our police department to solve crimes. But also what we've seen is that it is creating a more safe feeling amongst community members where we've been able to identify these. Been very beneficial with our businesses as well. The force metrics is a mechanism that they're utilizing, and then this also enhances our technology infrastructure in our police department. Again, allowing us to work smarter and not harder, and allow the police chief, who I think just walked in, to utilize, his officers in a really efficient way. So we appreciate it. If you go one more. And, again, our automated license plate readers, again, the police chief will be here as we wrap up to be able to respond to questions if you all have them.
What we're going to do when Chuck sends you this information, we're going to break it down into 3 or 4 priority areas. Public safety being one, economic development being another one, infrastructure. So you could look and you'll easily be able to see what it is that we have prioritized. There are a few which are more very city related, some smaller grants or stuff that we'll be asking for. Even though they may not be the big numbers like you see with water and sewer, they're certainly very important to us when it comes to quality of life here in Greensboro. So we're going to try to make that a little easier to understand. Do you have any questions on format or any recommendations you'd like to make?
We'll get to that. Let me, first of all, thank you for that. Yeah, I'm gonna start with Senator Robinson and Mayor. Thank you. We'll get that to you. We have already begun the process of holding places in our legislative process for these requests that you all will have, and so when you get them to us as soon as possible, with March 6th being the filing deadline, so we'll need to get those. With that, I'll start with Senator Robinson with our quick Q&A.
Yeah, just real quick, because I have to run. All of us did placeholders for you, talking to Johnny and all, and so it'll help us to know if things like the camera enforcement is still a priority or not. Those things are just policy. And then in terms of funding, since we're going to have limited money, really for you to prioritize from top to bottom what's funding. Some of us may have our own ideas, but it makes a difference if you tell us specifically what it is you want in case we have to package, is my comment. Thanks.
Senator Garrett, you okay? Representative Blust, you have questions or comments? And there's a mic there.
I have a question that I think I asked 20 years ago. Probably most people weren't here then, but is there ever going to be an attempt to coordinate the traffic lights in Greensboro? It sometimes just baffles me that I will go up sometimes the main road out to the northwest, Bryan, and get Green Valley, barely get going, get, what's the next one? But I'll get like 3 out of 4 lights, and the traffic is incredible at some of these times. Then coming in, I'll go to the Guilford College post office, drive into the office up West Market, and I'll get the stoplight at West Market and Spring Garden, barely get going, and then it turns red for Montrose, which ends there. And it just seems to me that the roads that are side roads should be subservient to the main traffic. I think it concerns me more because the technology now, I don't know, maybe y'all have this on your car too, but it'll tell me my gas mileage. And I'll get a tank of gas and I'll have a goal to let me keep it above so much per gallon. And it's easy if you don't have to stop much, but that stopping just kills your gas mileage, and it pumps more pollutants into the air. It costs you money to buy gas more. It would be a tremendous service to the citizens to keep that traffic moving. I just wonder if anybody can comment on that.
Trey, I'm sure you can take that back to GDOT.
John, I have been here for 20 years, and I do know that you said that. Purposely, we know how fast you drive, and so we're trying to slow you down.
All right, Representative Branson.
Thank you all for coming today and what you do for the city of Greensboro. I think my biggest question and concern is going to be probably to the police chief and fire service side as we go away from the combustible engine more so now in the accidents. Could you guys provide me with information on putting out the electric cars, the electric buses? I know Guilford County Schools was in here earlier today, and they talked about that particular piece is going away from a diesel into the electric. So talk to me a little bit about the cost of blankets and what it takes to put these fires out.
Sir, I appreciate that question. So probably not going to like my answer. And I think you've probably heard me say this before. Fire blankets, we have 0 fire blankets that are UL approved right now. So we're certainly working on that. Cost of a fire blanket is just shy of $3,000, and that's large enough to cover a battery car, not anything larger. You know, I think one of my grave concerns versus an EV car on fire, obviously we're probably not going to be able to extinguish it. Once it starts thermal runaway, we just can't extinguish it. I have a bigger concern of our North Carolina Fire Code of allowing charging stations in parking decks. So how do we address that? You know, should we be making that parking deck owner put a fire blanket in the parking deck? You know, these are smart decisions I think we could make if we're going to allow other things, but they are tough to extinguish, and we will be lucky to do that. We do have what we call cell block, where we can take it's basically glass beads, put the batteries inside of a 55-gallon drum, or it could be your cell phone, a scooter battery, mobile device. So we are making strides and taking steps, but we haven't caught up with that technology.
As we use the larger commercial vehicles and the passenger vehicles, and we concentrate our efforts to get away from some of the combustible pieces with the busing and even commercialized vehicles that Walmart, Lowe's, some of the larger corporations are using. We got to be figuring out a piece. I know I've been involved on the local side with purchasing of 2 blankets to go run, and they're extremely expensive. So I was just a little curious as to traffic's a little bit busier here in the city than it is within the county, so to speak. So what the city of Greensboro was doing for those.
Representative Harrison. Would you give her that mic?
Yeah, thank you. I actually have a couple of questions, if that's okay. And thank you all. I appreciate all the good work you're doing. So my questions are, you will not be surprised, related to all things PFAS, and the other relates to the water and sewer line extension. I have lost track of where we are on Summerfield. Has that happened yet, extending water and sewer to Summerfield? And if so, is the developer paying for that?
The first portion of Summerfield, I think it's 80 some odd acres, just went to planning and zoning. It'll come to city council in March. It is contiguous to, it was something farms. It was contiguous to the city of Greensboro. Certainly we are working with the state. We understand that there was some money in the last budget that would have assisted with some water and sewer. I know that the last budget didn't pass.
Are there plans to have the developer subsidize the extension of the water and sewer lines?
I'll have to turn that over to staff.
Sorry, I'll give it back. Oh. I'll give it back.
We do not have plans beyond the immediate property that went to planning and zoning. One of our requests is not specific to any development, but north of the lakes, there are potential opportunities in that direction, so we're seeking state funding for that. We have not determined a path for any specific project at this point.
Thank you. And so related to the PFAS, and I caught you for a tiny conversation, but that's a lot of money, and it's expensive to clean the water. I assume this is like reverse osmosis. Is that the current technology on that? And that price tag on both of those facilities is huge. Do we have a responsible party?
We do not dedicate that to a responsible party. We certainly have an indication that PFAS is used in the foam that was mentioned earlier, and that's a contributor. It is an expensive price tag, but it's an expensive thing to filter out. I'll be more than happy to send you follow-up information about how that process is working. Obviously, we're actively in that process now, but that continues to be a concern that's beyond really our capital ability to invest. So this year we're budgeted at $99 million. That number for infrastructure, filtration, everything else over the next 5 years is a much, much larger number. So any help that we could get in doing so, we'd appreciate.
Well,
Correct. Yeah, indeed, we're in the process.
price tag is 160, so is that 80 out of the 160, or you need 160 more?
No, that's 80 outside of the 160.
Oh, my God. Wow. Okay. Last question. I'm sorry. Fire foam. Because I've been trying to ban that for 10 years now,
Sure.
At least in practice, but actually in real use. But I know that some states have banned it. Some have banned the practice fire foam, but some have banned it because there are alternatives, safe alternatives.
Sure.
And it's troubling to hear that firefighters are still wearing clothing coated with PFAS, and there is not a safe alternative yet, or?
Not yet.
Wow. Okay.
There's not a safe alternative. I think NC State is leading the charge on developing that. There are some test sets out there. I think our mayor has been, Conference of Mayors had some discussions about it. We're just not there yet. We're close. And, in the city of Greensboro, we have not flowed AFFF foam for testing in years, many, many, many years. It's $35 a gallon. And, we just don't do that. So, we buy a safe alternative to test, which is environmentally safe. We do have our airport that's still required through FAA to maintain PFAS foam, and they do have to do that. And I think some of our contributing factors have been our buildings that have foam systems in them that have dumped in the past. I think all that, we can trace all that back to some of those. It's not just the fire department. It's firefighting foam as a whole.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Representative Clark.
We do need it at the tank farm. Yeah, absolutely.
Fuel fires.
Thank you, everyone, for your time today. I greatly appreciate it. I have two quick questions. First is on transportation and partially a comment. So as it is noted, I have drafted a bill to support the two particular requests on the pilot going from GTCC to a couple 5 schools, which was supported, that we heard from Guilford County Schools this morning, as well as a new north to south line. But again, those two projects are $800,000 in total. Separately, you're also saying $47 million for Gate City Boulevard, $20 million. So like you were just saying, Mayor, just to prioritize for us, should we just go after a couple small projects or a priority at large? That's just kind of my request. I don't want to file that until I know in total what the transportation request is. On housing, I applaud you for the 10,000 homes, the goal. I saw that. I want to support that. I want to know more of policy proposals or funding requests of what the state can do to support housing. I recall we need much more than 10,000 units. Yes, I think it's, and I've heard of a lot of legislation around single stair reform, mother-in-law suites, opening up, flexibility there. So I would love guidance on that.
So we'll provide more information, but I will tell you a lot of it is based on the heels of a lot of work that you all have done on the state level to, advance economic development on a number of other things. So we know that we need housing across the spectrum. It's not just, affordable or attainable housing. We need housing in those different areas. We've identified what we call our missing middle, but also we had a great retreat about a week ago with our city council. And an economist talked about the positive impact of building out on all ends of the spectrum for our housing market, which is important to us because there are a number of things that we want to impact, but we also want to make sure that we capture the jobs and have that workforce housing. I think someone talked about that a little bit earlier. So part of what we want to look at is how we impact or how we advance and accelerate the housing market, and that's going to come through us looking inside and looking at our permitting processes, looking at our zoning processes. What can we do? I do want to say this, doing it safely. That is a question that council members ask us when we develop out this policy. So we're not looking at changing policies or regulations or restrictions at the expense of safety. Let me just say that. But it's about making sure that, one of our council priorities is to be the easiest place to do business. But it's also about ensuring that we have an equitable housing market. And, we know we need a number of housing, but I will say this. This is not just about 10,000 homes. This is about making sure that as this community grows, as we grow out, as we have infill growth, that our communities that are here are growing and remaining resilient, that they continue to be prosperous where they are. And we want to make sure that we are part of that growth because we just don't want growth to happen to our community. So I'll make sure I get you more details. I will tell you we had a really good meeting today. Nasha McCrae, one of our assistant city managers, is here. Denise Turner-Roth, who several of you are familiar with, she's a consultant for us. She's helping lead that process. So we're carving out right now a really aggressive plan to get moving, to engage several different segments in the community. I will tell you, meeting with our development community, I had an opportunity to step into and have some conversation with the Realtors Association. But really, again, one of the biggest parts of starting this process is going into our community and having conversations. So I'll give you more details of way we can meet and discuss some of that.
We have been, We have been in conversation all day with various entities, including GTCC, who has talked about development in East Greensboro and what they're doing and how they're trying to bring not only training but jobs as well to East Greensboro. I know that Councilwoman Wells and Councilwoman Hightower, this is in your wheelhouse, Northeast Greensboro and East Greensboro. Is there anything you want to share with us about how the state can help develop those areas that have historically been underdeveloped?
So, Dr. Wells, so certainly, one of the things I'm sitting here looking at is the policy requests we asked for last year when we talk about the chronic violators, because we need to address that. Because, yes, while we want to build out new housing, we have current housing that is insecure and unstable and is not being maintained properly. So people are living in them with no heat in the wintertime and basically very squalor conditions. So we need to have policy that ensures these houses and apartments remain up to standard so people have somewhere to go, because they don't have the access that they honestly need for housing opportunities, housing that they can afford. Just because you pay $500, $600, or $800 a month doesn't mean you should live under those squalor conditions. So if you can help us with that particular policy that we've put in here that we asked for last year, which was to have a conditional rental inspection program that also addresses the chronic violators on a 12-month rolling basis, not a calendar year basis. That would be a policy that could tremendously help us as well. But also with down payment assistance, as we look at helping people become homeowners in that lower income stream, so that we just don't look at affordable housing, we look at attainable housing. Because at every income level, people need to be having a decent, safe space in which to be housed. And that's where we want to also create home ownership, which, as you know, creates generational wealth, which is not something we typically see in the east side of Greensboro. And that's where we need help in helping to build some of that up as we look at how can you help us with funding, maybe, as we encourage developers to build in our area with mixed-use type housing, not just saturate all lower and moderate income housing in one particular area. And that's what we're struggling with right now in East Greensboro. While the Toyotas are great, the Booms are great, we don't have the housing that's going to capture them either. And we also need the jobs that are going to pay a living wage for an individual. Because currently, right now, white people make $46,000 in this city, black people make $26,000. You cannot sustain yourself off of that, period. So those are things that we have been looking at, focused on. And the GTCC does have, certain trades that they teach, but they don't teach aviation in East Greensboro. So because we don't have the access to get to the GTCC in Jamestown, we need help making sure that happens. Because if you're going to offer me an aviation job, I've got to have the training. I've got to be able to get there. So helping with that transportation piece is also something that, and I could go on, but you kind of get where I'm going.
Thank you. I think that's something that Representative Branson had talked about earlier about countywide transportation. I see that Chief of Police is here, and I wanted to not only acknowledge but commend and ask a question. First of all, I want to commend that a couple years ago we set a record in the number of homicides that we had in Greensboro, and then subsequently that number has gone down significantly. So I want to commend whatever work has gone in with the law enforcement and the community, but then also the challenge that continues to present itself. We know, and it's not just cliche to say that one murder is one too many, but how do we continue to address that in our city, and what can we at the state level do to assist you with that?
Thank you. So
we'll get a microphone.
Thank you. I just want to, I'd like to mention two things that I think have been very successful collaborations with the state level legislator here in Greensboro. First was a grant we received for our BHART, which was our behavioral health response team. That was a grant of about $300,000 that allowed us to expand our co-response team. And what that is that's where we have crisis counselors who respond with police officers to mental health calls. And so that seems like it's kind of an insignificant amount of money when you talk about the grand scheme of things at the state level or even here in the city. But our BHART team is recognized across the state, the Southeast, as a model for response to mental health calls in our community. And we're expanding that. So that was a phenomenal collaboration. Second being GMAP. That didn't cost the state any money, but it was a change in the legislation that allows for civilians to respond to traffic crashes. We have been doing that for about 8 months now, and it's extremely successful. Not only are they taking, I think year to date, they've taken over 3,000 calls that typically a police officer would have to go to, and they've handled those calls themselves. We could probably triple the size of that unit and still be effective here in Greensboro. So those are really two things I think that show how effective the relationship between state legislators and how they can impact us here at the local level. So I appreciate that. Thank you. And I really, for our ask, and I know it's a little more money than we've asked for in the past, but our real-time intelligence center, for us to continue to be effective, we're going to need to continue to grow with the city. That can take a while. It takes us almost a year to hire police officers. By the time we actually get them sat in an academy, get them graduated and out on the streets. And what the technology around our real-time information center does is it's a force multiplier. So we can utilize that technology to be more effective when we're addressing crime. And what we've seen is the success in that and how it drives down violent crime. And it's not just, I'll say the Real-Time Information Center, it's not just a investigative tool. So it's not something that's just used to investigate and follow up. The number one thing that actually will prevent a crime is if somebody has a high likelihood that they're going to be caught. You would tend to think it would be the consequences. Oh, if I'm going to get caught, I might get locked up, I might probation. That's not actually on their mind. What stops people from committing crimes, overwhelmingly, the majority of the time, is the likelihood that they will get caught. And so when we look at our real-time information center, when people know they're out and about in the community and there is a higher likelihood that they'll be identified and caught, it actually works as a crime deterrent. So I think if we can continue to leverage technology, not only real-time information center, but the license plate reader, it is a pilot program right now. The legislator made that change last year, pilot program in 2025 to allow those to be put on state-maintained roads. That would be a huge thing as we come out of that pilot to make that permanent legislation to where we could do that. So.
I know that is something that's been discussed at the legislature. There have been some civil liberties concerns about that, but as I said, that's in process to see how we can have some permanency with that, if that's at all possible. So thanks a lot. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions or comments from the Guilford delegation? Okay, seeing none. Madam Mayor, if you have, sure. You need a microphone, Price.
Well, yeah. So the downsizing piece that was in Senate Bill 382, I did, right, the downzoning. What did I say? Downzoning. Oh, sorry. Downzoning. Sorry. Keep doing that. Anyway, I did talk to the bill sponsor who was asked for a full repeal. A bunch of local bills have been filed as well for different counties and cities across the state. But it does look very hopeful. Jay Adams out of Caldwell County out of Hickory feels pretty good that it's going to move because there seems to be a lot of support. So got to push back against the home builders, but I'm feeling hopeful. So I thought I'd let y'all know. Thanks.
If you'll give that to the mayor and any closing comments that she has before I wrap it up.
I just want to thank the Guilford delegation, maybe from me and Zach. We asked for funds to assist with Bingham Park and downtown. And, of course, we didn't get the dollar figure we asked for, but we are appreciative of the $11 million. And Zach was very gracious to allow me to keep $10 million, which is going to go directly to Bingham Park. We are going to have a plan to have a park in that area. It won't pay for remediation of the other Bingham Park, but because we had acquired the Old Hampton Elementary School site, we are going to be able to develop that, a portion of that, for a park and give some amenities in that area. So I wanted to thank you and thank Guilford delegation for giving us those dollars, and we are able to move that forward. So I really wanted to appreciate that you know that. So thank you.
I did want to mention one other thing. You'll notice on the list we listed FIFA funding. And, FIFA is that World Cup that's coming. That, on what we handed you today, it says reoccurring $100,000 annually. That's actually meant for the Folk Festival. The FIFA program is not only just for Greensboro, it's for throughout North Carolina, and one of the locations of the World Cup games is in Charlotte. So there's a good chance that we'll be a base camp, Greensboro or High Point. So there is a bill pending. We just hope that Guilford County could support that FIFA funding. There's also a bill in the federal for like $623 million. which would, if that money gets passed, some of that would come back to North Carolina and Charlotte and Greensboro and High Point. But in order for us to do the World Cup games right, we need the state. It's 20 some odd million and then 623 from the federal level.
Thank you for that. I have to say, when I saw that, I thought that meant soccer, but I didn't want to be wrong and look not intelligent by saying that's something that the city has. But I'm a soccer fan, and so seeing that, I said, okay, thank you, Mayor, for making me know that. And I did know that the World Cup is coming to North America in 2026, and glad to hear that
And
Charlotte.
that is right
and this
around the
region.
corner.
That's right.
And then also, if you hear any funding opportunities for the World University Games, which we really need that as well. That is from Raleigh to Winston, and that will bring in hundreds of thousands of people to our area.
And as you know, we have
the UNESCO or UNESCO, I always say it wrong.
yes, yeah. I think they've received, the Civil Rights Museum has received that designation. I think they haven't.
No, they did.
The heritage, they've got
Yes.
the heritage designation. But I do know that there is funding requests to the state continually to support that outstanding institution here in our city.
Yeah.
Madam Mayor?
And that's all I have to say. Any other council members have anything they'd like to include?
Clarifying the folk festival, we had received in the past $100,000 for the folk festival on an annual basis. We just had to ask for it. We were asking for it to be a recurring item at some point in time. That's probably not going to happen this year, of course. And the number needs to be more than 100, but yeah, we can leave it at that. I think.
And we'll ask for it again. That's right. With that being said, if there are no other questions or comments from the delegation, and the mayor has asked for questions or comments for the city council, and seeing none, I wanted to say welcome to elective politics to Ms. Pender. Congratulations to you, a fellow Dudley Panther. So you know I had to give you that shout out. To the delegation, I'll say thank you. To the city council, I'll say thank you to each and every one of you. And this is an ongoing conversation. This is not a one-off conversation. As the mayor said earlier, we're always responsive, and it's always been that way. We've been mutually responsive to each other, and that should and will continue. So with that, thank you all very much.